bringing metal to the masses. OnslaughtRadio.com.
This is Onslaught Radio. I'm Natalie, and I'm backstage at the O2 Academy in Islington, where I'm catching up with American thrash legends Overkill. I'm talking to Bobby Blitz.
Hi. How are we, Natalie? How's everything?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good to be back in the UK.
And obviously, you're starting your European Killfest tour this evening. What are you looking forward to about the tour?
You know, it seems like a start, but it's also, we're coming down to the last quarter of it. This is our second Euro tour for the Ironbound record in this Killfest tour. We also did 2 in the US. So this is the last quarter of 4. First date at the O2. What am I looking forward to? I suppose what has preceded it, and that is the same mayhem, chaos, and I suppose good times too. Good bill. Overkill, destruction, heathen. After all, going to be a bloodbath.
Awesome, and you answered my question regarding the bands that you're performing with. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to about the tour? And I mean, I know you've got quite a few dates coming up. Is there any specific date that you're looking forward to?
My wife's Dutch. I always like going to the Netherlands. I mean, so that's always important. We usually end there so that I can hang out with the family. But, you know, day number 1 is always like a big deal because it's like the rebirth. It's like the redoing of everything we've done for, let's say, this 30-year period. And I know I still am hot for the whole idea because of the way the stomach feels somewhere around noon and then 2 and closer to sound check and then showtime. It's still important in my head to always pull off that first show at a high level. So I like to take it one day at a time as opposed to saying, oh, what am I looking forward to over the next 3 weeks? I'm really looking forward to the O2. Done and done.
And we're very proud to have you here as the first date. Obviously, you've toured extensively over the past 25 years. How does the reaction from the UK fans compare to fans from other places around the world?
Oh, it's really cool. It's always been kind of an over-the-top music scene. I think probably when you can endear yourself to an audience, specifically, let's say in London, for this case, because we're playing here this evening, you have accomplished something very large because these are quite critical people. Now, the thrash scene itself can be quite embracing, but also I think, you know, we were away from this for a long period of time and then started coming back 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess. This is our 4th show in London and all at the O2. And prior to that, it had been a long time. We did, shot in once and did the Underground in Camden. But then we started playing here, and we kind of think of it as a bump up. So we think that it's hard to play to a London/UK audience, but if accepted, let's say loved from that point on. So we're back, so I guess that's good results.
That's great. And is there anywhere that you haven't toured yet that you'd really like to?
It's cool. We got recently offers from India, and they keep kind of falling through, coming back, falling through. So we think it's going to happen. We've accepted the deal. It's really up to them whether they can push it through or not. And I think that would be totally unique. I mean, to do Bangalore, Mumbai kind of a tour. Because it's funny how universal this really is. I mean, you say it's universal, but you don't, I've never thought together to be Bangalore and Overkill or Mumbai and thrash, but it is, obviously. So it's universal, it's worldwide, and let's see, that could be the new frontier for us.
Well, we actually work with a lot of unsigned bands, and we have a lot of Indian unsigned bands sort of on our list, so the thrash, particularly thrash bands, are quite big out there, I think.
Well, I could tell by the offer that came through and the size of the venues that it was going to be the real deal if they could pull it off. And let's see if that happens. I mean, it's good that after this amount of time that this scene has existed, and the amount of time that we've toured, that there still are kind of new horizons. This whole Ironbound Killfest year for us, year plus, has taken us from Western Europe to Eastern Europe to Asia to Australia to the US to Canada to Mexico to South America. So when you start thinking in those terms over the course of 13 months, you're getting a lot of ground covered. Now you start adding India and maybe some Chinese shows after that. You're really about worldwide then, huh?
And are there any bands that you would really like to tour with that you haven't had the opportunity to yet?
That I haven't had the opportunity to tour with? You're calling me old, I guess. Right? I'm joking.
No, we'll get to that.
I just like to. No, we'll get to that. I'm a big Motorhead fan. We've done tours with Motorhead. Love touring with those guys. I toured with Halford as his band. I'd love to tour with Judas Priest. Never have. We've toured with or done shows with all of the thrash bands, all the big four, all of the little 8 that follow. So who would I like to tour with? The Expensive Winos. Okay. It's Keith Richards' solo project. I think it would be pretty unique to have 6 weeks on the road with Keith Richards.
And I understand you've recently been confirmed for Rock Hard Festival in Gelsenkirchen on the 12th of June. I understand you're doing a special set. What can fans that are coming to see you expect from this special set? Well,
it's not going to be very special if I let it all go here. But we're most certainly, just to touch on it, we're going to concentrate on one specific record, and then do the set in 2 parts, where one part of the set is one specific record, and the other part is, let's say, classic Kill.
So it's definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah, it's going to be fun because we've never done something like such. We were never asked to do something like such. So it's really a great compliment that I think that over these Killfest years, for the last 3 or 4 years or so, that we've bumped up the profile internationally. Had great bands with us every time. And the acceptance of the Ironbound record is at a high level. So, you look at that, and then, the Rock Hard Festival comes and says, hey, would you do a special set for us? We want to bump you up higher on the, to have a headline on one day. We're like, yeah, we can do this.
That's amazing. Are there any other festivals that you're hoping to get to for the summer?
We do Sweden Rock. We do Bang Your Head. One other German festival, and I may mispronounce it, but I think it's called Dong, and I think it's new.
And are there any tracks that you particularly enjoy performing live?
Well, every time around we insert different tracks, and we try to get things that we haven't done for a while, but are band favorites. So tonight we're going to do a song off of the Horoscope record, and it's called Blood Money. And this is something we haven't done in such a long time, and it's one of my favorite tracks. It was one of my picks. We're also going to throw some new tracks in that we've never played before off Ironbound. This will be the first night ever playing them live. So it's always about that kind of immediacy. I mean, it's good to be prepared, and it's good to be rehearsed. It's good to plan, but there's something magical about immediacy, because if that doesn't happen, then the explosion can never reach the highest of highs. And that's what I think is really cool about throwing the new stuff in, just to see, or the old stuff that is played with the new attitude, see if we can get that explosion to happen.
And obviously you mentioned the new band Iron Fist that was released last year, I believe, or over here I think it was anyway. Are there any tracks on that particular album that you enjoy?
Ironbound is the title track. That was probably one of my favorite ones to play live. We're doing a track called Endless War for the first time tonight. So that'll be in there. And one of my other favorite tracks off that is a song called Give a Little. It's got kind of a really punky, hardcore groove type of a vibe to it. So it seems to be a 3-headed serpent, and takes on the persona of 3 kind of genres in there. And that's another one we'll be doing tonight, and also one of my favorites.
And the album was released through Nuclear Blast, and you've been through quite a few labels, and you've self-released some stuff. How does it compare by being on Nuclear Blast now?
Well, we've never really self-released. We've had a record deal since our first record, and which is kind of unique to say. Well, I remember I ran a loading dock in Manhattan, and the next thing I knew, I had a record deal, and that was my last job besides being an Overkill, and that was 1984. So we've kept a record deal for that amount of time. So there were no self-Overkill releases during that period. The only self-releases were when we were unsigned prior to that first deal. Being a Nuclear Blast, I think one of the cool things about it is, to some degree, they're a monopoly. They're really the center of the metal world when it comes to release and label. But the cool thing is that when you go into their offices, everybody's got on a kind of a black T-shirt with a logo on it. There's a guy walking with an Exodus, a Death Angel, a Suicidal Angels, and then over here, and then over there, and then et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's dressed in the uniform. So you get that feeling of, ooh, we're in the right place. Yeah. So, point being that those who are promoting it are those who love it. So there's like an extra added amount of energy there. And, there's a contrary story. I remember back in '93, I was sitting in the offices at Atlantic Records with my partner, Dee Dee. And there's our promotion guy was sitting behind his desk, big oak desk. And he's got on a very expensive French shirt and a tie. And he's telling us what he's going to do. And we're going to go here, and we're going to go there, and we're going to go here. And then he got a call, and he put on his jacket and said, "Excuse me, boys, I'll be back in just a minute." I looked at Dee Dee, and I said, "Dude, we're fucked."
Sounds about right.
But, the point is that he knew how to promote records. But our assessment wasn't going to be based on the love of the band that the label had. The assessment was going to be by some bean counter who's going to say, "Oh, they only sold this many units," or "They should have sold more with regard to the promotion we put in." So I think we're in a place that's very comfortable with Nuclear, and that's not comfortable to where we can rest, but comfortable to know that those we align ourselves with have the same love of this that we have.
And obviously you've been around for almost 30 years now. I mean, it's getting there, isn't it? And you're still managing to belt out these amazing Overkill albums. How do you get the inspiration to just keep them coming?
Well, Dee Dee and I both started the band when we were 8 years old, so we're not really that old. I'm only 38. So that gets hella laughs in the States. In any case, I think how it works is, again, this has been a vehicle to... Overkill has been a vehicle, let's say, for instance, to this interview, to this gig tonight at the O2, to the gigs that have preceded it. What's come out of all that is a great amount of satisfaction. I'm a proponent of the things my father told me when I was a kid, and he said, find something you love and you're not working. I did. And that's the way he feels about his profession. And when I do this is something that I'm natural for. I'm cut for, I get huge amount of satisfactions out of, and love. So I think that how do you still do it after this amount of time is that you don't overthink it, that you just really let it run on autopilot, let your emotions take it over, whether those emotions be anger or love of the scene, and it just happens on its own. Don't overthink it or you can ruin it. It's a big thing about songs. You can sterilize them that way. But when it comes to this touring and stuff, that's the byproduct of it, and it's the stuff I love. I love being able to go see the world. I love meeting new people. I love doing shows. So I get all the benefits of satisfaction by just letting nature take its course.
And obviously you've had 16 albums now. You're classed as one of the thrash legends. What, personally for you, has been your highlight over the years?
My highlight over the years? With regard to being a thrash legend?
Yeah.
What has been my one highlight over the years? I mean, obviously there's tons of personal highlights. Musical highlights, probably the first festival I ever played. That was Roskilde in 1994. It was the first time we were on a stage to more than, let's say, 10,000 people. And it was, it takes your breath away, it rips the heart out of your chest. I mean, I remember that day being, not warm, 10 degrees and Celsius. Yeah. And by the third song, everybody removing their shirts because we were sweating so much on the stage because it was just such an energy and such an excitement around it. And the festivals that came afterwards and learning how to do them. But that first feeling was, I remember looking at Dee Dee and saying, this is it. This is where you live or you die. And this is what it's all about. So that was probably one of the highlights for me.
And finally, we do a lot of work with unsigned bands, and there are thousands of unsigned bands that would love to get to where you are. What kind of advice would you give to them?
I don't give out any secrets because there's just no more room up here. I think the idea is that if your idea is original stay with that original idea. It doesn't necessarily have to be accepted by those around you at this point, but it has to be developed and honed. If you believe in that idea, and that is a good idea, people will eventually recognize it as so. To copy is not necessarily a good idea. Find your original route, develop the idea, stick to your guns.